Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to the daily Trade the Chain crypto update, where we give you everything you need to know for the next 24 hours and hopefully the next few days. We are rounding out the week, the first full week of September, Friday, September 8th, and a bit of a topsy-turvy evening and morning for crypto prices and equities prices. Crypto came well off its highs, from yesterday overnight. Equities dropped a bit overnight, but then kind of climbed back to their nightly highs this morning. And DXY tumble overnight and then has recovered back to pretty much where it closed yesterday. So we do know that if DXY continues higher, that definitely spells a little bit of doom and gloom for risk markets, which are, of course, crypto and equities. And with these tweezers sitting here on the 12-hour, certainly doesn't look like it's going to head down. It tapped the 104.7 supports this morning, and then is obviously headed higher. So if it closes above the previous daily close yesterday, which is 105.05, I have a feeling this will head up next week and will be a bit of a roadblock for risk assets heading higher. So very important to keep an eye on this, in my opinion. And remember, CPI is next week, so that could bring some volatility if this continues to head higher. But as we can see, equities, definitely, higher than yesterday. Previous daily close sitting right here at 44.51. But I should note, and I just told the TTC community this is a pretty solid rejection right here for equities. And we talked about this yesterday on Trading Rebellion, possibly getting up to 44.90, but that 44.75, 44.80 level being significant due to 1 hour estimated 200 moving average. You have, the high from mid-August, which is, the 44.74 level. And then you also have this weekly VWAP up here, which it didn't tap, but, obviously tried to sniff 3 times through 3 separate hourly candles and could not. So this does look like a rejection, but we need to see it break below 44.58 for it to be confirmed. Break below, obviously, the low of this kind of little order block right here. So it definitely could still, try and make its way up to 44.75. But the way I treat this, when you see this many tweezers, it's kind of similar to Bitcoin, and we'll talk about that. But you set a short, you set your stop at the local high, and you walk away. I mean, you could, obviously compound on the way up, or you could set your stop a little bit, more seriously. But this does look like a shortable play, in my opinion. So therefore, my bias is it will probably head back to 44.50, 44.51 before making another decision. So looking at Bitcoin, obviously, right now not looking good, but what we told TTC community, breaking above the weekly VWAP will probably, and which also, we need to get above that 25.9 level. That would bring us up to 26.1, and then obviously talk about higher. But rejected off of the weekly VWAP, deviated above the 25.9 level, and obviously heading lower. So, natural targets would be looking at, maybe this low from earlier in the morning, which is 25, just over 25.6, or right at 25.6, which is, this low from Thursday. And then we also have kind of this, where we were trading on Wednesday, which is right at 25.6. So, these would be the natural targets, but obviously if it doesn't break below 25.7, then you've kind of still got, higher lows technically, and you could definitely see it grab this liquidity up here before heading lower. So very something to be mindful of, but very similar to equities in the sense that, I think this is going to head lower, so you set your stop at the local highs for Bitcoin. If you're shorting, set the stop at the local highs, ride the short down. And then obviously if it sweeps this level, then you would take a long. But it is important to note that if we lose kind of 25.6 level, then we could run down to 25.3 or even lower at 25.1. Remember, I've still been talking about these lows down here that haven't been tapped, and obviously it's tried, but it hasn't, and still seems likely that it may try again. So Bitcoin not looking very positive, but if it does, it still can climb back up to 25.9. And if it reclaims 25.9, we could certainly see 26 or 26.1 heading into the weekend. But in my opinion, with these kind of rejections, especially with equities and DXY looking the way that they do, we're more likely, I think, to find that liquidity down here at 25.6, 25.5, maybe even lower down to 25.3, 25.1. And then we're looking at ETH. I mean, it's very similar for Bitcoin. the weekly VWAP is clearly the stalwart of resistance, very, again, very similar to equities in the sense that rejecting off this weekly VWAP, you set your stop at the local highs, you ride your shorts down. If it breaks below 16.24, pretty much guaranteed to hit 16.16. And then we've got this Monday low, which also coincides with the Wednesday low, sitting at 16.10, which is worth noting as well. And then we also have the previous weekly low sitting at 1600 flat, 1602 to be exact. And then we have the week before that's low sitting at 1580. And then we obviously have this, low that I mentioned in context of Bitcoin, at 1550. So there's still a lot of very low targets to hit for ETH that I think are more likely to be grabbed, considering how much resistance we've seen at the 1660 level. And so, break 1616, target 1610, break 1610, target 1600, break 1600, target 1580, break 1580, target 1550. So you've got your levels down, just a matter of timing and rejections. But obviously, if you put a low risk kind of short out here, I do think that that's more than likely to play out, but could still, run back, grab this liquidity before heading lower. We know market makers like to make it difficult for us. And hello, Richard. I'm just seeing your comments. Sorry, a few minutes late there. I was distracted by the charts, but hope you're doing well as well as all the other followers and listeners for today's session. So, it is also important to remember we are going into a weekend. So I'm kind of talking about these short targets. These could play out into next week. But depending on how equities close today, if we close below yesterday's previous close, which is, like I said, 4451, that would probably be a pretty bearish indication for crypto over the weekend. But also, if we just zoom out, this has been really our range. If we go, let's check out some other weekends. So this was Friday end of day, and then obviously this is our Sunday open. So not too much there. Some small volatility over the weekend, and then let's look at the previous weekend as well. So Friday closed right here, and then Sunday opened here. And if we kind of zoom into that, kind of drifted up, but nothing really, tradable unless you're a savant or just, have nothing better to do than trade a $200 range. So, I wouldn't get too crazy with shorts, but I am currently in shorts on Bitcoin and Ethereum, obviously with, stops at the highs, like I mentioned. So if that plays out, I'll be a happy guy. But obviously, if we take this liquidity up here, either look to compound at equal highs or just cut it and walk away, for the weekend. But considering, we saw this dump overnight, and then I saw this, weekly VWAP getting rejected, and I figured, pretty good short opportunity. Considering we failed so quickly from, any positive price action yesterday, it doesn't really put too much confidence, in you if you are bullish. But like I said, someone, maybe market makers are listening and like, hey, I'm gonna grab this liquidity up here and screw him. But if we do get another rejection kind of off this, 1 hour estimated 200 moving average, which also is even with the liquidity from Thursday, also with some liquidity from Wednesday, then maybe I'll compound or add. But if it gets above, 25, if it gets above 26, there's no point in trying to short it, because if it's above 26, then it's likely to probably try and grab this liquidity again. But we do have to watch out for that 26.1 high, which is the Monday high. So, and also just a good rule of thumb, and I'm sure, many of you know this from watching me, but the Monday high and low are very significant for weekly price action. As you can see, every time we got above the Monday high, deviated. Every time we tapped the Monday low, deviated or didn't even meet it. So always important to consider that kind of context for the weekly movements. But in my opinion, I would be shocked if we did not grab these lows down here, since we hunted the highs up here. So I'll be watching that over the weekend. And then, of course, watching equities to see how they close. If they end up grabbing this liquidity or getting above 44.73 by the time the weekend ends, crypto probably will not have a bad weekend. So that'll be something I'm looking for as well. And then, of course, always watching DXY, a daily close above 105 flat, in my opinion, 105.5, I guess. 105.05 is what I should say. As you can see it on the far right up there, 105.05. If we close above that, that'll be another feather in the cap for my shorts as well. So Not too much to analyze. We told the TTC community if there was no buying action within the first hour that we would take shorts. And obviously, there was a little bit and it immediately sold off. So I took shorts right around 10 a.m. Eastern, and I'm riding in those right now, sitting in profit. Hopefully, fingers crossed they play out. But we'll have to see how things go. So next week will be an interesting week. CPI is next Wednesday, followed by PPI on Thursday. So that there should be some action next week, because remember, the Fed is quote unquote data dependent and CPI is a big inflation print. So depending on how that looks, that could decide momentum heading into the end of September. So we'll talk to you guys on Monday. We'll be back for Trading Rebellion and, of course, continue with all of the normal content throughout the week. So good luck. Happy trading. See everybody on Monday. And remember, if you're not in the TTC community, missing out on a bunch of alpha, 14 days free at www.tradethechain.com. Peace out. Have a great weekend.